Israel launching a barrage of missile strikes in the Syrian capital of Damascus this morning. You can see there right on your screen, missiles actually hitting the Syrian military headquarters.
Nothing to do with Iran, nothing to do with Hamas. Instead, what you're seeing is Israel intervening in what is still a very chaotic internal situation inside of Syria. You remember back in December, Syria's longtime dictator, Bashar al-Assad, was overthrown and he was replaced by this new government made up of Islamist rebel groups. Now, over the last 24 hours or so, we have seen those rebels locked in quite intense fighting with an ethnic and religious minority group in southern Syria called the Druze. Now, the reason that the Israelis care about the Syrian government fighting against the Druze is there is a large Druze community in northern Israel, in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, and that Druze community is very agitated seeing this bloodshed inside of Syria.
We're going to be working on that issue as we speak. I just got off the phone with relevant parties. We're very concerned about it, and hopefully we'll have some updates later today for you. But we're very concerned about it. We want it to stop.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. We want the fighting to stop because we had a ceasefire overnight. It broke down again. So we're talking to both sides, all the relevant sides on this, and hopefully can bring it to a conclusion. But we're very concerned about it.
So you're seeing the U.S. there calling for a ceasefire and hoping that this doesn't escalate any further.
Syrian ceasefire. What Druze leaders and officials agreed on. Earlier on Wednesday, Israeli forces struck the Syrian General Staff compound in Damascus, citing concerns over violence against the Druze minority. 2 civilians were injured in the airstrike. Syrian government officials and Druze leaders announced a renewed ceasefire on Wednesday evening, following several days of violent clashes that prompted intervention from neighboring Israel. It remained unclear whether the latest truce would hold, after a previous ceasefire declared just a day earlier quickly collapsed. The new agreement was reported by Syrian state media and confirmed in a video statement by a Druze leader. Clashes between government forces and Druze armed groups have raged for days in the southern Syrian city of Sweda. The announcement came hours after Israel launched a series of airstrikes on targets in central Damascus, citing the need to protect the minority Druze community. Following the strikes, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar slammed what he described as international inaction on minority persecution in Syria. In a statement released on Wednesday afternoon, Saar said a recurring phenomenon of persecution of minorities to the point of murder and pogroms in Syria was unfolding, involving both regime forces and militias that formed the country's transitional government after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Sometimes it is the regime's forces. Sometimes it is jihadist militias that are the basis of the regime. And usually, it is both, Saar said. What else needs to happen for the international community to make its voice heard? The Israeli foreign minister said there was a noticeable pattern of violence against several minority groups over the last 6 months, including mass murders against the Alawites in northwestern Syria on a very large scale and constant acts of hostility toward Kurds in the country's north. Saar said militants burned down an ancient church in As-Suwaida province Tuesday, following an attack by the so-called IS group on another church the previous week. The recent violence against the Druze community, Saar said, came with very difficult images of the murder of civilians, of the humiliation of civilians. Israel's interests in this country are well known, limited, and clear. First of all, to maintain the status quo in the southern Syrian region, which is also close to our border, and to prevent the development of threats against Israel in this area, Saar said. The second thing, to prevent harm to the Druze community, with which we have a bold and strong relationship with the Druze citizens here in Israel, he explained. Further reinforcements to deploy along the border. Israeli forces conducted an airstrike Wednesday targeting the entrance to the Syrian General Staff compound in Damascus, in what Israel said was a response to the recent escalation of violence against the Druze minority. An Israel Defense Forces (IDF) spokesperson said in a statement that the military has acted in accordance with the directives of the political leadership and continues to be on alert to face various scenarios. Syrian state television Al Akhbariyah reported 2 civilians were injured in what it described as Israeli aggression targeting central Damascus. Meanwhile, Israeli army spokesperson Avichai Adri said a decision was made to reinforce the number of forces in the area of the security fence on the border with Syria. According to Adri, Israel will not allow a military threat to exist in the south of the country. Israeli airstrikes also targeted Syrian military positions in Sweda province, where armed clashes have resumed. Defense Minister Israel Katz directly addressed Damascus, demanding Syrian forces withdraw from Sweda and leave the Druze alone. The Syrian regime must pull back and leave the Druze community in Sweda alone, Katz said. Israel, Katz added, will not abandon the Druze in Syria and will enforce the disarmament policy that has been approved. In Syria's Sweda province, tensions have escalated into open conflict in recent days, where armed clashes between Druze and Bedouin groups have resulted in dozens of casualties. The Druze, a group that split from Ismaili Shurism in the 10th century, are concentrated in Sweda and certain Damascus suburbs such as Jeramana and Ashrafiyat Sanaya. During Syria's 14-year civil war, Druze factions formed their own militias and have remained largely self-governed. While many Druze in Syria have said they do not want Israel to intervene on their behalf, factions from the minority have also been suspicious of the new authorities in Damascus. Like and subscribe for more. Thanks.